All right, welcome to another deep dive. And today we're heading into a pretty unique corner of the internet. It's called The Liat Show.
Oh yeah, I've heard of this.
Yeah,
Yeah, have you seen this before? It's kind of a wild mix. It's like storytelling and personal thoughts and like reflections on culture.
yeah, it's like a digital salon, kind of.
Totally. And it's all hosted by this brilliant woman, Liat Portal.
Exactly. And what makes it even more interesting, I think, is that it's not just one thing.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's not just like a blog or something.
Right. It's multimedia, so it's a mix of writing, podcasts, even some interactive stuff, and this all comes together on Substack.
Okay, so Substack. Now, for people who don't know, and maybe some people listening don't, Substack is basically a platform where writers and creators can kind of skip the whole traditional media thing.
Like go around the gatekeepers.
Exactly, yeah, and share their work straight to the audience.
But how does that turn into a show?
Yeah, right.
What kind of content are we talking about here?
So, Liat, she describes her work as it's like this fusion of her own experiences, her own reflections, but she also mixes in a lot of Israeli culture.
I can see that.
Like it's this vibrant tapestry. You've got music, food, art, entrepreneurship, everything.
Wow.
And she's not afraid to throw in some fictional stories too. You know, like her recent one, Greenland 90210.
Oh, yeah, the Greenland 90210 story. This is where it gets really interesting. I mean, the story takes place in Greenland 2030.
The future.
Yeah, and there's this crazy plot twist where former President Trump,
Yeah.
he sold a plot of open ocean to these billionaires.
Wow, unsuspecting billionaires.
I know.
Classic.
It's wild.
It's satire at its best, though.
It is?
It's like she's holding up this mirror to real world issues, you know? And Liat, she's not holding back. Like this is a direct critique of political figures making deals without any oversight and then the consequences that come from that.
When I read this story, I couldn't help but think of that whole controversy with Jeff Bezos in the Washington Post.
Oh.
Where the opinion editor quit over concerns about Bezos maybe pushing his own agenda on the paper.
Absolutely. Margaret Sullivan, that was the editor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was worried about Bezos, pushing for a very libertarian slant, maybe even trying to like limit criticism of the government.
It's almost like he's putting his own business interests ahead of like real journalism.
Totally.
So we've got this fictional world in Greenland 90210 where deals made without thinking things through have these huge consequences.
Right.
And then in the real world, we have this situation with a super powerful person maybe trying to control what gets reported.
It's a little creepy, isn't it?
It's chilling, yeah. Like, is it just me or are we seeing a pattern here?
No, you're definitely onto something. Both of these, they really make you question power, Who's in control? What is the truth? And who gets to decide what information we see?
And I think that's where Substack comes in.
Oh, interesting.
Because with Substack, Liat has complete control over what she creates.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to answer to advertisers or, corporate bosses or anything like that. It's just her and her audience.
It really flips the whole media thing on its head, doesn't it? I mean, instead of being beholden to these, outside forces, she's accountable only to the people who are actually reading and listening. And in turn, they have a direct say in whether her work keeps going.
They're invested.
They're invested, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we're back. And we've been talking about this parallel between Greenland 90210 and that whole Bezos Washington Post thing. In the story, it's like these shady deals cause total chaos. And then in the real world, you've got these worries about powerful people maybe controlling what we see in the news. It's like, how much of what we read is actually, influenced by stuff we don't even know about?
That's the question, isn't it? Like, it should keep us all up at night. Seriously. So imagine if more media outlets, were afraid to criticize the government. Maybe they're worried about losing money or getting pressure. I mean, how would that change the way we see the world?
Well, wouldn't it be like this echo chamber? Where you only hear certain opinions, and those opinions just happen to be the ones that benefit the people in charge.
Exactly. You'd end up with this, totally distorted view of reality. Critical voices would get shut down, and the powerful could just, do whatever they want. And it's not just some, far-off possibility. We're already seeing signs of this, journalistic standards are slipping in some places.
It's a slippery slope, for sure.
It is.
And I think that's why what Liat's doing on Substack is so important. It's like she's saying, I'm not playing that game.
Yeah.
I'm going to create a space where truth matters, where holding people accountable matters.
And that's why we need to support creators like her, as readers, as listeners. It's not just about getting great content. It's about building a future where independent voices can actually exist, can thrive.
It feels like we're at this turning point, right?
Mhm.
Like the old ways of doing media are falling apart, and these new platforms like Substack are popping up.
Yeah, yeah.
But those platforms need a different kind of engagement. It's not enough to just passively consume stuff anymore. You have to actively participate, be part of the community, and actually support the creators you value.
And that support, it makes a real difference. It gives creators the freedom to follow their passions, to explore ideas that might be controversial, and to speak truth to power without being afraid.
Sometimes I wonder if people really get how serious this is. Like, do we realize that we're on the verge of a world where controlling information is just like the norm? A world where you only hear one side of the story.
It's a pretty scary thought, right? Like something out of a dystopian novel or something. But here we are, it could actually happen. The good news is we still have a choice. We can choose to support the people who are fighting for truth, for transparency, for a media landscape that shows different viewpoints.
And supporting Liat, like actually becoming a founding member of the Liat Show, that seems like a good place to start.
Couldn't agree more. It's a chance to be part of something really unique, to directly help a creator who's challenging the system and changing the way we tell stories.
So what does being a founding member actually mean? Is it just a title, or is there something more to it?
Oh, it's way more than just a title. It's a real commitment to supporting Liet's work, in a way that makes a difference. If you go for the annual founding membership, it's basically like getting a whole year of the Liet Show for the price of 10 months. And for those who maybe want something a bit more flexible, there's the monthly membership. Either way, you're directly helping Liet create and share her perspective with the world.
And her reach is amazing,
Yeah.
I mean, she's got people tuning in from all over.
It's true. Liet's mentioned having listeners in over 85 countries and something like 34 states here in the U.S.
Wow.
It really shows you how powerful her stories are. They touch on these universal themes that resonate with people everywhere.
It makes you think, right? If one person, one independent creator can achieve this, imagine what would be possible if we all got behind a whole network of voices like hers.
That's a pretty exciting thought, isn't it? And it starts with recognizing the value of these independent voices, understanding that they're not just entertaining us, they're helping us make sense of the world.
We've been talking about how important it is to support these independent voices, especially now when traditional media is, well, facing a lot of challenges. But what I find really interesting about Liat is her background.
Right. It's not your typical path for a storyteller.
Definitely not.
I mean, her bio mentions like industrial engineering and business.
Yeah.
Not exactly the first things you think of when you think of storytelling.
Not really.
And on top of that, she's an Israeli woman living in Silicon Valley.
Such a fascinating mix of experiences, right? Like, how does that shape her work?
It's got to have an impact, right?
I mean, do you think that analytical problem-solving mindset she probably got from engineering, does that come through in her storytelling?
Oh, I think so. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's this depth to her writing, like a real thoughtfulness.
I can see that.
It's not just about telling a story. She's connecting the dots, looking for the deeper meaning, the systems at play.
It's heady stuff, but she makes it so engaging and entertaining.
Exactly right. It's not just dry analysis.
No.
She brings this passion and this humor to it,
Yeah.
And I think that's why people connect with her work so much.
Totally. She's bridging that gap between, like, intellectual stuff and real human connection.
Absolutely.
I think, Lee, it's a perfect example of why supporting independent creators is so important.
Yeah.
It's not just about protecting their freedom to
I think
create.
more than that.
It's about opening ourselves up to new perspectives, new words of thinking.
Like if Liat had taken a more traditional path, who knows? We might not even have the Liat Show.
We might be missing out on something really special.
It would be. It's like, would we even be having this conversation?
Probably not.
And that's why we need to create space for voices like hers, voices that don't always fit in the neat little boxes.
The rule breakers.
The rule breakers, yeah. And that's what platforms like Substack do so well, They give creators this freedom to experiment, to explore, to connect directly with their audience.
And find their people.
Exactly. So for anyone listening who hasn't checked out the Liat Show yet, what's the best way to join the party?
Well, it's super easy.
Yeah.
You can subscribe to her Substack. It's $8 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets you access to everything, the writing, the podcasts, the discussions.
And for folks who maybe want to support her, but are on a tighter budget.
Yeah.
She's also got a Patreon community. You can join that for just $1 a month.
It all adds up. Every little bit helps.
It really does. It shows creators like Liat that you value their work, that you want them to keep going.
It's about investing in a future where people can speak their minds without being afraid. where creative thinking and truth-telling are celebrated.
A future where we don't let corporate interests or fear dictate what we see and hear.
That's a future worth fighting for.
Absolutely.
So to wrap things up, if you're looking for a show that'll make you think, make you laugh, and leave you wanting more, The Wyatt Show is definitely worth checking out. Head over to Substack or Patreon and join the conversation.
You won't regret it, and thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
As always.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep supporting the creators who inspire you.